Let's start off this course by looking at chapter 1, and this is the nature of a company. We'll look at the nature of the company. So the topic list of this chapter, we'll first look at the introduction, then the office of the registrar of companies, then the types of companies, then companies and partnership. So the learning objective of this chapter is basically, by the end of this chapter, you should be able to explain the legal personality and the nature of a limited liability company. Explain the relevance of the office of the registrar. Explain the types of companies. And lastly, distinguish a company from a sole trader, partnership, and other forms of businesses. So, to begin with, a company is just one form of business. A company is just one form of business. Just to mention a few, right? The other forms of business that we can be familiar with is basically sole trader, right? Sole trader. It's sole trader. So in terms of a sole trader, it is owned by one person, owned and managed by one person. And the other thing, there is no separate legal entity that is formed. What do I mean by there is no separate legal entity that is formed? Right? What means is that the owner, let's say, for example, Mr. John Banda, opens a business in form of a sole trader, and it's called Banda Investments. Right? Banda Investments. This one person and this business, there's no legal separation. What it means is that this business, Mr. Banda, is just sort of an asset. It's a personal item of his. A personal item of his. This business cannot stand on its own. What we mean is that it cannot say ndine a legal person. It can't be recognized in the law that it is a person, a separate person. That's something that we should know. It means that it's just like how you can own a car, how you can own any asset that it's his. It means that anything that happens qua business, it will personally affect him because there's no separate legal entity that is created when a company is operating as a sole trader. Now let us look at another form of business. Another form of business is a partnership. So partnership, here we're saying that there are two or more people doing business together. It's no longer one person, but two or more people doing business together. Right. Another thing that we can highlight when it comes to partnership is that there's no separate legal entity that is formed. Separate legal entity that is formed. What it means, just like a sole trader, right? You cannot separate the partners, right? The partners from the business itself. What it means is that if anything went wrong here, these guys will personally be liable, right? If this business is to pay tax, right? It's not the business that pays tax, but individual partners are the ones that pays tax, because in law, this business is not seen as a separate entity. It is just part of the partners. So when you open when you register a company as a partnership, it is not a separate ego entity. And another form of business is basically the company, right? It's basically the company, right? So the company is another form of business. So the company law, it covers this type of business. So the basic idea of using a registered company as a tool or a medium for trade and commerce is straightforward. We'll look at what is the concept behind actually registering a company. Why can we just not register it as a sole trader? Or if we're a number of people, why can we not just register it as a partnership? Why should we have to register it as a company? Because most people amasokoneza one thing. Alesa akangobanga register company, akangobanga register business kwa registrar, amangoganiza kuti ndabanga register company. But most of these people that register, the small businesses, it's not really a company, right? It's a misconception, right? Most of them have registered either a sole trader or a partnership, because to register a company is not as straightforward as just going to apply, right? There are a lot of stuff that have to happen for you to actually register as a company. And register company. In real sense, they just registered this as a business and it is a sole trader or a partnership. It's not necessarily a company, right? So muzabantu business tabanga register company. Not really. It's not a company. Maybe in future they might grow and actually register it as a company, but not now. Most people abango tabanga register company, but what they are trying to say is tabanga register business. Tabanga register business. So a company is formed or incorporated by a promoter. So the person that actually forms a company is called a promoter. So a promoter is the one that forms the company. Promoter forms the company. So namina makapanga register company, it should be in existence. So this person that actually has done everything to make sure that the company is in existence is called the promoter. Right? The promoter. Right? So after the company has been registered, right, the company can issue shares to shareholders, right? They can offer shares to shareholders. What we mean is that the promoter is offering parts of this company to people so that people can own it. So if they're offering some part of this company to other people, right? These guys are called shareholders. They are part owners of the company. So everyone will buy shares in accordance to how much money he has, because he has to pay money. And this money is used to run the business. It is a source of financing. How a company raises its finance is by issuing shares to people so that they can have and enjoy part of the company. So when people actually buy the shares in the company when it is initially formed, they are said to have subscribed to the company. They are said to have subscribed to the company. And what they have is basically they enjoy control over the company in form of voting in meetings so that they decide how the business is run. So in other words, the owners of the company are either called shareholders or members, right? Shareholders or members. So after the shareholders have actually bought and they are owners, the shareholders are the owners, right, of the company, right? They appoint directors to run the company for them. So because they are actually appointing other people to run the company on their behalf, the directors are called agents. They're acting in a capacity as agents. They are agents of the shareholders because they are actually doing stuff on their behalf. On their behalf. So what we're saying is shareholders, the owners of the company, might not run the business on a day-to-day basis. Why? Because these are just investors. They might be doing other stuff, right? It's just basically a way of investing, right? They just require a return in form of dividends and capital gains. So, but they appoint other people to run the business for them. And these are called the directors, and they are acting in a capacity as agents, right? As agents. So that's basically it. So the day-to-day running of the company is normally delegated to directors who are appointed by shareholders, right? And the company, for it to run, it will have to raise capital. It will need money. And the first form or the first way a company raises capital is said in by issuing shares, right? By issuing shares, people are actually going to pay money to the company to actually have part ownership of the company in exchange for money in money that they provide. So that's the first way a company can raise money. And another way a company can raise money is just by borrowing, issuing debt. They can go to the bank to borrow. They can go and they can issue debentures and so on and so forth. There are two forms in which company can raise finance, and this is issuing shares or issuing debt. Now, let me get you back to why a person can want to open a business in form of a company and not a sole trader or a partnership. Right? The thing is, the moment the person that actually registered the company, who we have mentioned as the promoter, company ikangoti yapangidwa incorporate. To say incorporate, it means it has been registered and it is now in existence, right? This company is a separate legal entity. Unlike Yachan, sole trader or partnership, this one in law is said to be its own person. It assumes a separate legal personnel. It means that chicho chimene company sichimakuza ma shareholders necessarily. What it means is that if a person sues the company, does not really mean that they have sued the shareholders. Business is sole trader. If a person sues a business, they have actually sued the owners of the business. right? So what it means is that because this one is a separate legal personnel, it means that it can actually sue or be sued. It can actually own its own property. What it means is that company itakukhala manyumba, koma doesn't really necessarily means kunena kuti shareholders own the nyumbayo. No. What they own are shares in the company. Get me right there. Right? The assets of the company are company's assets. What the shareholders actually own are shares in the company. Right? And the company actually owns the what? The assets. When you're a sole trader, every asset that's in the business is actually mine. Is legally mine. That's why people choose to open a what? A company. So the thing, ndiyeno mukanena kunena kuti yes, mwapanga open company, it is a separate legal entity. Why would you want that? So why a person would want to open a company is because of the element of limited liability. Limited liability. The company is called a limited liability company. When it is incorporated, it is called a limited liability company. Right? Limited liability company. What it means is that if a company actually borrows money, right, and is failing to pay this money, my shareholders sizakuza. Awawa amene anabweka drama to the company, right? Sangapite kwa ma shareholders kumakapanga claim drama zawo. They have to claim it from the company. In other words, their liability has been limited, or actually restricted. Their liability has actually been restricted. Ngati ma shareholders anapeka drama zawo za ma shares bwinobwino, you can't go kumanyumba kwawo kumakatenga drama chifukwa chona, kumakatenga katundu wawo chifukwa choti akukanika kubweza ngongole. No. If the company borrows, then they borrow. If the company is being sued for whatever reason, it's not the shareholders that are actually being liable for those cases. Omega khala ma business enawo, ngati business iyi ndi ngongole, munthu can actually go to the owner and claim money from him. Because the business and the owner are not separate legal entities. When you sue the business, you actually sue the owner of the business. Because in law, right, the owner and the business are the same. So for that reason, people prefer to open a liability. Imagine, yalowa muzungu kuleza ndalama zambiri bili, ma billion, right? But company ikavuta, they can just actually wind it up or close the company. Koma sizakuza ma shareholders. Because kubweka drama business yo as a company, it was borrowing it in its own right. It was not borrowing as a shareholder, but in its own right. That's why people can choose to open that. So it is important to note that any asset accumulated by the company are owned both legally and beneficially by company alone, and shareholders have no direct interest at all. You have mentioned that. Company's assets are actually owned legally by the company. Shareholders have no part in the company's asset. What they own in the company are the shares. That's what they own in the company. And that one is the thing that they legally own. So, This is as a result that a company, this is as a result of the fact that a registered company is an incorporated association, right? Incorporated association. When you say that it is an incorporated association, we're saying that when it has been formed, it has actually assumed a legal personality in law, right? Meaning that it has its own rights, it has its own obligations, separate from the owners who are the shareholders. So when we incorporate a company, right, the owners and the company are different. For us to better understand this legal personality that exists, right, is using this illustration, right? A person who owns all the shares in the company can still be convicted of stealing from a company. Versus company ndaipanga form ndine, right? I am the promoter and the sole what shareholder of the company. Ndine promoter and also the only shareholder of the company. I own all the shares of this company. Kuti mumvesese kuna kuti what this legal personality means. Muntu ameneyu, Mr. John, who is the promoter, anatsegula company, and the only shareholder in the company, meaning that he owns 100% shares in the company, right, can still be sued by the company that he has stolen. Although company zijose mashares also aliyani manja mwake. Because the assets of the company are what? The company's assets. No, he's not legally what? He doesn't legally own any asset of the company. The company owns its own asset. What the shareholder own is basically what? Is basically what? Is basically the shares. Come with a business like a sole trader or partnership, right? Mr. John hata ukangotenga katundu inaso ndikupanga chilichonse yakufuna, he won't be sued because there is no what separate legal entity that is formed when this form of business is actually what registered. So the sole owner of a company that is registered can still be sued for stealing from the company. Ukangotenga katundu opanda protocol basi kugwisa ntchito, the company can sue it, can sue the owner. Ndiponso company nkuwina bwino zimatheka, right? That's basically it. So in Malawi, companies are primarily governed by the Companies Act 2013 as well as the case law. So there are two authorities that govern companies in Malawi. The first is the Companies Act 2013. The Act, called the Act, right? The Companies Act 2013, in this manual called the Act, right? And case laws. Case laws are just basically decided cases. Kada anthu ena ake anapita ku koti kukasumilana, you can use that as a precedent, or in other words, pophunzirirapo, right? So ngati judge anaperekapo chigamulo china chake, ndeno case yokufanana ndi yanga, right? I can use that to back my case, right? That's basically what case law, right? Using a decided case, decided meaning kuti anapanga kale judge, right? To help me, right? Govern the company, right? So there are two authorities, the Companies Act and the case law. These are the two authorities of governing the company. And these together are called the authority, right? The source from which the law is taken, right? What is the authority? Authority is just basically the source from which the law is taken, or the source from which the companies are governed, right? That's basically the authority. It means that if they asked you, what are the authorities of the companies in Malawi, right? There are two: the Companies Act 2013 and case law. These two combined form the authority of the company. So when it comes to answering the examination questions, right, your answer must always be supported by provisions of the Act or a decided case. As I said, for you to better answer law subjects, you have to use section from the law, which is the Companies Act, or a decided case. It means that every time you're talking about a principle or an idea, make sure that you support it by a section in the Companies Act or a case that happened, which is similar to that one. That's basically how we are supposed to do this. Now let us look at the office of the registrar of company. So who is the registrar of company, and what is this office of the registrar? So just to give you an idea of the registrar or the office of the registrar, is just basically the office, right, where companies are registered. If you want to register a business, a company, you are going to register at the registrar of company. His office is the one that is actually formed to make sure that the register or the companies, and the next thing is basically to make sure that the Companies Act is being followed or is being administered. So if you want to register your company, mumapita kujani? The office of the registrar. Mukapanga register, you actually fill all the forms and give all the necessary documents, and the registrar, after being satisfied that it is what it is, well, he might now actually register your company and put it in their database. So this is the office that is actually handling the registration of all companies and basically the admission of the Companies Act in these companies. So let's look at the office of the registrar. So Section 3 of the Companies Act is the one that have actually established the office of the registrar, right? Pamene kapanga form legislation iyi kapena the act ya Companies Act, right? Mu section 3 nimeana kuti kukwenda kukhale office of registrar. Ndi section 3 imene anemezo. Kopanda section imeneyo ndi office imene simaine khaleko. Koma nanena kuti section 3 kukhale office of the registrar of companies. So this office of registrar imatani. What are the function and what are the powers, right? So the registrar's functions and powers are provided in section 4 of the Act. So mu section 4 of the Companies Act nimeana forokoza what are the functions and what are the powers. The thing is, anangopanga list what are the functions and what are the powers. Together, they just jumbled them. They do not really actually separate them. But from my understanding, power and functions are different. Power and functions are different. Although they have actually just listed them together. Alright? Power is just basically function is just basically what you are required to do. Function is just basically what you are required to do. Functions is just basically what you are required or mandated to do. While when it comes to the power is just basically the authority to do what you are required to do. In other words, mphamvu kapena what I can do for me to satisfy what I'm supposed to do. Right? Power is just the authority. Right? Authority. This authority is helping me to satisfy my function. The function is just basically what I'm supposed to do. But as I said, Section 4 of the Companies Act just listed the powers and function limos. It means that as akafunsa una kuti what are the powers and functions of muzangobanga list any. Azana kuti what are the functions muzangobanga list any. What are the powers muzangobanga list any. Chifukwa choti Companies Act yatani yangobanga list sanapange separate. This is basically from my understanding. So from the list, I'll be telling you which one feels like a power and which one feels like a function. Right? But the Companies Act itself has not separated it. So what are the powers? What are the functions? And you will be good to go. Right. So the first power or function of the company is basically, as set out by Section 4, is basically administering the act. When we're saying that administering the act is making sure that the act is being applied or is being followed. Right? Administering the act. So in administering the act, one of the items that is included in administering the act is basically the registration of the company, right? Registrar of company can actually register a company because he is trying to administer the act, right? So one of the ways in which a registrar of company will administer the act is through registration of company. Other things can also be like inspections of companies and so on and so forth. That's one of the powers stroke functions. I would say this one is basically a function as opposed to a power, right? This is a function. This is a function as opposed to a power. Right? For me, this is a function as opposed to a power. Right? So this is a function as opposed to a power. So that's basically what we are saying. So this is, I'll call this function. And this is basically my categorization, right? My categorization. This one has not been mentioned in the in the act. No, it hasn't been mentioned in the act. It hasn't been mentioned in the act, right? This is just me doing it, right? But when it comes to the question, don't separate them, right? But to me, this feels more of an act as opposed to what? A power. Another thing is the registrar is mandated to maintain a company's registry in the Malawi Business Registration Database. So this guy, right, in his office, he's also required to make sure that he has a registry. A registry is just a book or a place where you will be actually recording informations when a company is registered. So he is mandated actually maintain a company's register in their database. That also feels as a function as opposed to what? A power. Another thing is to do with the registrar also performs such other functions as may be specified by the Act or any other written rule. So this is just basically a general thing that he's also supposed to perform any other functions that may be specified in the Act or any other what? Any other function. That's basically it. Right? That's another thing that you have to be familiar with. Right. All right. So that's basically it. And that's also a function. And the registrar is mandated to keep registers that record information and that permit informations to be readily inspected. So another function that is there for the registrar and his office is to make sure that he keeps information or records pertaining the company, right? Pertaining the company, and this information that is permitted and that will be readily available for inspection. If a person goes to the registrar, this information should be readily available for inspection. It means that I can go to a registrar of companies and ask for information pertaining to Airtel Malawi Limited because Airtel Malawi is a company. That's also a function. The registrar should provide means of inspection of documents in the registry upon payment of a fee. Another thing that is also mandated to do is basically provide a means in which a person can actually access or inspect what documents in the register. Right? After a person has paid, doesn't mean that it is free. Malawi, I have to pay a fee. Malawi andikaniza, no. I register andikaniza. Ndikangopereka ndrama akuyenera kundipasa information yokhuzana ndi Airtel Malawi kwa registrar kumeko. That means he's also mandated kuti he should provide these means or tools for us to inspect these documents. Another thing is the registrar has the power to enforce the provisions of the Act. Right? He has the power. You can see what I noticed there has the power. This is the authority. It means this is a power as opposed to being a function. Right? So he has the power to enforce the provisions. Right? In his power, what he can do, he may conduct company inspection. Ndekuti atakutani kuwapanga inspect any other company. 1. 2, he can also remove any company from a register. Mwina sikusatira malamulo, he has that power to strike it off. Company sikusatira malamulo, sikubwesa zinthu zake kuno, ndaichosa mbuku, it's no longer a company. That's a power that is there. The registrar may appoint independent inspectors to investigate the affairs of a company and report to him. Another power that he has is that office kwake atakupita ndikukapanga engage an independent inspector. Atakupita na kuti company yakuti mukaifufuze. Ndakulemba nino ntchito kuti mukaifufuze. Ndipo office yawo ikunena kuwapasa office of the registrar itotenga ndrama kumeneko imene it's allocated to it ndikukatani ndikulipira independent yani ndikulipira independent inspector inspector ameneyo amene ukapanga chani ntchito ya investigation iyo. He has that power. He's not limited una kuti akwena kupanga china yake. No, his office has that power to appoint an independent inspector to investigate affairs of any company. Sukuti ukakhala registrar anthu yake angakusomera kuti you're abusing power. No, that's your power. That's within your power. You can do that. And lastly, the registrar is required to provide for two models of filing: the traditional hard copy filing and the modern electronic model filing. So another thing that this office is mandated to do, it's also a function there, right? It's also a function. It is basically to actually provide a mode of filing, keeping documents. It's either you can use the traditional way, kumaika mafailo mafolder, kuweka mafailo mafolder, or you can use the electronic way, right? With the advancement of technology, we are moving from hard copies to what? Electronic. So he has that power to choose whichever way. Although Panoba, the registered company is actually what? Moving from the traditional way to the electronic way. We can see Olongapanga registered company, you are supposed to actually register it electronically, meaning that they are trying to move from this, right? Why is it important using the electronic way? The importance of using the electronic way are obvious, right? Are obvious. The importance one is basically better customer service, right? Better customer service. Why are we saying it's a better customer service? For example, in end fund a file ya Airtel or company already was registered 20 years ago. And it's an kuti quite struggle with my file. Document. But because of this, you can easily what? Just search and you find the information, right? Creating a better customer service. Another thing is basically cost saving. Cost saving. Cost saving is coming in a way that they no longer have to print papers, right? They no longer have to have big storage areas. They don't have to employ somebody ali busy wakuma file. Muna 3 employees kuangalia zose electronically. One person can manage that. So in other words, they are saving cost in that way. Kulibe zokhani mapepala zogula mafailo zotani, they are saving what? They are saving cost in that way. These are the advantages of using the electronic filing. While although it has advantages, it also has a what? Disadvantages. And the biggest disadvantages is basically because they are using the electronic way, right? Prone to loss of data because of viruses. Prone to loss of data because of viruses. Viruses virus attacks can actually what? Make you lose all the data. Right? Virus attacks can make you lose all the data. That's why it is important to always back up. Another thing is the thing to do with hackers. Because mugwisa zintu zamakono, people can remotely access this. These are called hackers. People with malicious intention. Hata kungopita remotely, ndikukalowa mu system, ali kumanyumba kwao. Right? Kukalowa mu system, ndikupanga access chili chonse, pa ndikuononga, ndikutani. That's the two disadvantages. Viruses and these hackers that can easily access the information. If there's no what? Protection. That's why kumafunika ma safety measures. Like for viruses, use antiviruses and use what? And use you can also backup. For hackers, use firewalls. These are just concepts that could computer system, right? Info system. It's not really to do with what? Company law. So that's something that you just had to know when it comes to this. So that's basically to do with that. with the registrar of company. That's to do with that. That means we stop here. Thank you.